Hello and welcome to Wednesday Encounters. I hope everybody's doing all right out there tonight. Sorry we are a little bit late, but we're here now, and that's all that matters. With me tonight is Mr. Mark Zasky. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good. How are you, Danielle?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
How's your week going?
It's slow.
It's
It's
slow.
slow. It's nearly
That's a good thing.
done. It's nearly done. We've got the bank holiday weekends coming up for Easter, so last day work tomorrow, and then it's long weekend.
There you go. You see, that's it. That's why we do it, the long weekends.
That's the reason why we do it. With us tonight, our guest coming from Louisiana is John Day. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing fine.
Can you hear me all right? I know we're having a
How
little
y'all
bit of audio issues, aren't we?
How you doing, John? Can you hear me good?
I'm hearing you better.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds better. I got my iPad away from my iPhone. Looks like it helps, maybe.
Yeah, the better the internet connection you've got, the better. So the more that's switched off will definitely help. If anything's, I don't know if you're pulling from you broke your router there.
So what do we have tonight? Do we have some kind of an encounter? Is that what John's gonna lay out for us?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. What kind of encounter is it?
I've got the wrong background on. Not that it's going to. There we go. Can you hear us all right, John?
Uh-oh.
I don't think there's anything to do with it.
Yeah, I think John's having a little trouble.
This is what happens when we're live.
Yeah, it only happens when live is happening, actually. And it's my understanding that John, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's. I'm hearing you better.
Okay, can you hear Daniela?
Can you hear me, John?
Huh?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, John?
It's like the words are bouncing off of a wall or something.
Okay. Well, John, I understand that you had an encounter in Louisiana, if you're still with us. Yeah, it seems like we're losing him there.
It's like being on a ship.
Okay, can y'all hear me all right?
Yeah, we can. Why don't you get into your encounter, John, while we can hear you?
Yeah, tell us about your encounter.
Let me see if I got anything turned on in the background of this.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we were trying 15 minutes before the show to set this up, so it's not like we just
no, it's been touch and go. So, but in the meantime, let's talk about what's going on until we get John back.
Yeah.
What's going on with everything with Bigfoot Odyssey right now? What do we got going on?
Well, we've seemed to have a lot going on.
I mean, show-wise.
Well, we've got the late show coming up on Friday.
Okay.
With Kerry, hopefully, and Bradley. And we'll be doing our Sunday conversations on Sunday. Oh, here we go. John's back.
Okay, you're sounding good right now.
Are we sounding good?
Awesome. Welcome back, John.
All right. Thanks.
Having any trouble hearing at all? I think he might be. John, if you can hear us, why don't you go ahead and lay out your encounter for us?
I'm still having serious problems.
Okay.
Wow. That's incredible.
When I first came in, it was clear, and then
it's gone, hasn't it?
Well, sometimes we have connection problems. Earlier, I had some connection problems. There's some cloud cover.
Yeah, I ain't running anything in the background, so.
Okay, if you'd like, John, why don't you go ahead and lay out your encounter for us?
Y'all can hear me all right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, it happened in May 2016. Well, I'll give you a little background about myself. I was born in West Virginia. We lived in Louisiana. I lived my longest part of my life in Louisiana. I left West Virginia when I was 4. Both my parents were from West Virginia. When my daddy retired, he moved back close to his family farm up on top. His farm was up on a mountain. So I went up there, made a trip before he moved up there, and they had some good deer hunting. So me and some friends decided we'd go up there and start deer hunting. So I hunted there basically about 20 years, and had a lot of success with the deer, but I never noticed anything really strange. You know, I wasn't really had any knowledge of Bigfoot, I guess, so I didn't really know what to listen for. I heard things and things happened, but I didn't understand why or what they were. I just made excuses for what they were. Well, my parents moved up there. They had that house for like a going up in the winter or the early winter or late winter, moving back down this way. They were living between both Donaldsonville, Louisiana, and Gary, West Virginia, and we were hunting it in the wintertime when they weren't staying there. So we went up there. It was May 2016, and I decided to take a walk in the evening. And there's an area above them that goes up the mountain kind of gradual, and then it goes up real steep. They call it 5 Right. So I was walking, getting exercise. It was late in the evening, and I walked all the way around the ridge and came back and started back towards my parents' house. I heard 4 tree knocks, and they were in cadence. It wasn't like bang, out of rhythm or anything. It was like 4 knocks. So I stopped and I looked up the ridge. They had a little holler up there, and I'm on the dark side. It's late in the evening. I can't see nothing. So I stopped for a little while and I looked and searched and couldn't see nothing. So I started walking again. Then I hear 4 more. I mean, as soon as I started walking, I hear 4 more tree knocks, 4 knocks. And, it was in rhythm and cadence, I guess you can say. So I stopped again and I looked a little longer. I looked out all the way up the ridge top and looked at the shadows of the trees, the dark sides of the trees and bushes and rocks. I couldn't make anything out. So when I turned to start walking again, it threw whatever it was, threw something at me. It threw it by me. I mean, it must have had a really good arm because it was fast and it kind of cut through the treetops, which there was a road above me in the trees, and that tree was about 20, 30 feet tall, I guess. And I mean, it went through the small limbs fast. And then it kind of scared me. And I said, well, I don't know what this is, but I'm going. I don't want to get hit by something. So I went on home. So I kind of told my parents about it. He said, well, what's funny is they said, this guy named Charlie Schwartz, I never could locate him. He moved out. He was up there sleeping one night about 2 weeks ago, and he seen a Bigfoot. He said he drug his finger across his van and hit the antenna and woke him up and scared him. And they had a guy in a tent. I found out later they had a guy in a tent that was camped right above him, and he shot at one. Something that was, circling his tent. But that was the same night. They were there at the same time. Oh. And so that's when that was my first event, and that's when I started doing research. Because it wasn't long after that I had a lot of trouble with my knees, and I couldn't get around very well. So I was watching everything I could on Bigfoot, learning everything that I can about it. So that was the first thing happened to me. But since that happened to me, I started noticing other things, and I think it was COVID.
Oh, lost him again.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted then.
So,
I'm going to suggest.
This was Louisiana, Danielle?
Yeah,
Were you talking?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, he's from there. I don't know if this is there, but I'm guessing it is. Oh, he's come on.
Yeah, it could have been Virginia there.
Yeah.
You good, John?
Okay, can you?
We can hear you fine.
Hear now?
I think you might have better luck with your signal if you allow your phone to sit still. Yeah.
And do you want to try turning your camera off? That might help us.
Too, yeah.
Turn my camera off?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
Can you hear us better now?
Does that make it?
Can you hear us better?
Story y'all heard from me.
Can you hear anything, John?
I'm still having problems.
Yeah, he's having really bad problems. I think, this is the kind of situation where, we can't get this straightened out. We need to, take some questions or something here, because
yeah,
we can't have something like this. So it might be better to try to reconnect with John on another night when there's better signal.
Definitely.
Yeah. Let me get my laptop all set up. And
do you want to go on? Do you want to go and set your laptop up and then log back in and see if we can try on your laptop?
I don't think he can hear you at all.
No.
Yeah.
Strange, isn't it?
So, technical problems, sometimes that's what it is. But, that's one of the benefits of having a co-host, right? So we can move along with this. I know probably at this stage in the show, we probably don't have many questions, but John,
do you want to try your laptop?
Okay.
There he is.
Do you want to try on your laptop?
He can't hear you.
I'm just gonna drop. I guess I'm just gonna drop off because it doesn't look like we're making much headway here. I'll try to, and if I get it back, get my laptop set up, I'll get back with you.
Okay.
In
A
little bit.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see you soon.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Shortest encounter in history, right?
That's what happens. They're all short though, aren't they?
Yeah. Well,
Seconds.
Yeah, if that. It's usually, I thought I saw something. Few and far between are the kind like Carrie had. That's for sure. Or mine. Yeah. I've had quite a few of them, but at the same time, it's not one of those things that is typical. It's like people used to tell me all the time when I would surf, like they didn't know that I would surf 5 days a week, or whenever there was waves. And they would tell me, I'd be like, you always need to be careful about sharks. And they would say things like, it's statistically, you're more likely to be hit by a car or this or that. And I'm like, yeah, but or the lightning thing, it's like lightning, it's like being struck by lightning. And I'm like, yeah, but I play in a thunderstorm.
You could be
people always say that, right? So like I'm surfing, I'm in their habitat constantly for hours, piling around in their food and all that. So it's like one of those things where if you're in the right area, incredible things can happen. And nobody
can you hear me all right?
Nobody believes you, huh?
No. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you great. You're coming through great.
That's
Are you talking to me, Daniela?
I'm talking to you. I think so. There's only you there.
I keep hearing his voice still.
Really?
I just heard it again through my computer.
Are you playing your...
Is he in the queue?
Are you playing your YouTube with your volume on?
No.
No?
No. It's strange, isn't it?
Something's going on tonight.
I got my email open and that's it. Yeah, I know, man. We're having a lot of problems. But listen, I was talking with, this is good news, right? This is good news about the project, right? So we have this side project carrying on. And we just found out in the last couple of days that we're going to be upgrading some equipment. And it's very exciting because if we can duplicate situations like what we had live on air on Bigfoot Odyssey last week, this time we'll have equipment that's much better suited, basically shooting 3 times the clarity, even through the thermal. You know what I mean? So we're real excited about that. I was talking with Carrie today about it, among some other things. And it's like in looking for the properties. If any of you guys have a situation that you'd like to contact Carrie and I about for a personal investigation on your property, that's one of those things where you can email Carrie and I at bigfootodyssey@gmail.com or at cryptoreality.us@gmail.com. And we can start looking at that. But did you have anything that specifically, Daniela, that you wanted to talk about tonight?
Well,
I know you always have the coolest questions, so I'm really willing to like you're the last few times that we did shows, you had great ideas. So
Well, last night we did drawing Bigfoot, and we didn't have a guest, but we played an old interview that Larry hosted. Larry's done hundreds of interviews, and they're all up on Blog Talk Radio, I think it's called. And he interviewed like a really rare interview with him, John Green and Bob Gimlin, like the only interview those two did together.
Wow.
So really, like historical stuff is got as Larry. And so this interview was with a guy called Bob. I can't remember how to pronounce it. Hang on. It's because I'm a little bit tired, but his name was Draginis, Bob Draginis.
Draginis.
And he had an encounter, and he's with two FBI agents at the same time. It was really fascinating. One of these agents just walked off and carried on walking and didn't even speak to them. And he kept his gun in his hand the whole time till he got home. He was absolutely terrified. Larry drew it, and they talked about how it had peaked around this tree.
Out of that.
So while we're playing the interview and Larry's drawing at the same time, and he just
is this now is this the creature that the FBI agent got to look at?
This is Larry drawing whilst listening to this interview.
Okay.
Describing the fact that this thing is peaked around this tree. And so as we listen to it. But anyway, this guy made his own trail cams. He made like buggies and stuff that could go into the woods and capture stuff. But what he found out, what he tested, was that these trail cams were giving off ultrasonic vibration sound, and that they knew that animals were picking up on it.
They could hear it.
They could hear it, and so he buried it, created this thing and buried it underground. So just so that the camera was coming out of the ground. And apparently it had like sticks and stones thrown at it and all sorts of things. Like they still knew it was there, but it's just interesting that these cameras are giving something off. There is something about that.
Yeah.
But it was a fascinating interview. It's really good. And if anyone goes back to last night's show, there's a link there in the comments. I put it in where you can go and listen to the full.
I always find it humorous when I hear the stories about the game cameras and the planted cameras and all that kind of stuff, because it's nearly the same story every time, and where it just seems that the subjects figure out that the camera's there, kind of thing. And then there's 100 theories on how and all this stuff. And it's funny because I think that they just are watching you put the thing there.
Yeah.
And you don't know it. You know what I mean? So like you leave thinking, they'll never find that. And they just watched you put it there from 25 feet away. They're just green. You didn't see them. It's like,
I'm pretty sure he said as well, or I've just read it recently, but I'm pretty sure it was last night, where he said they could tell that the deer could see the infrared light because the pupils started to dilate when it was watching.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So
the infrared thing, we've seen evidence that that someone's using infrared in the areas and high pulses, very strong pulses of it. And we've seen this, eyewitnesses, man. Two people at the same time saw this, you know what I mean? Me and Scott. And so it's interesting that we've been hearing for decades that Sasquatch can see this infrared, and a lot of people who are, pretty hardcore researchers would agree with that. I mean, we've all had trouble trapping these guys with game cameras. Occasionally you get this like odd picture or even a really good one. I remember one picture came through and it, to me, looked like a real creature. It was just the back of the creature from a game camera. And it struck me as interesting that they got that was a good shot of a Bigfoot, because it was on the opposite side of a tree, and the creature obviously had approached from where he couldn't see the beam, if that's what's going on. But it was interesting to me that is the only really excellent trail cam picture. It's of a Bigfoot's back, and he must have been walking past it and didn't notice it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I don't know if you've ever seen that thing, but it's immense. It's got the gray hair on it, and I mean it's like crystal clear. You can literally see a boil on the back of this thing's back.
Wow.
And ticks and like weird stuff that look like big ticks, you know. But you know, looking at the infrared thing, man, I think that there's a chance that not only can they see it, but I had a conversation with somebody today that was a former MUFON director, and he was saying that there's a possibility that they may even see in infrared, which I found interesting because I mean, how would anybody know that? But there are people researching that, you know, we're obviously unaware of. And then occasionally these people do come forward with pieces of information. And this is one of those such pieces of information that has come forward, you know, that it's possible that these creatures not only can see infrared, but that somehow they have a specialized vision system outside of what, you know, we believe it's just simple nocturnal eyes, right? Everybody's talking about the glow. And that's what he was getting at, really. How are these people describing a glow? And, you know, my response is always like, I'm like very simple in the way I look at things. The eyes of everything that I've ever seen that had any shine or glow to them was because I had a flashlight in my hand. And it's real simple. Most people don't go into the forest, deep woods, without a light. What are you going to do? Stumble around, run into trees? So, of course, you had a light when you were in there. And now you're saying you saw eyes glowing. But typically, a nocturnal creature can have up to 10 times the light absorption and refraction coming back out. Right, if they're nocturnal, all that light is gathered in the back of that ball and it's sent right back forward to illuminate at night so they can see. So it's like interesting how that whole phenomenon works, but we've never seen anything like the glow that people talk about. And I was telling the guy today, I'd love to see something like that. It'd be fascinating to me that a creature could produce its own, you know, eye like that in the dark with no ambient, you know, adding to it.
Yeah. I was talking about this earlier about how, you know, you can kind of get carried away with reasons or explanations very, very easily. And there's nothing, you know, I'm not saying these things aren't happening, but our explanations are getting bigger and you know, more out there sometimes. And I kind of think if things don't make sense, it's because they don't make sense.
Sure.
Now, I don't know how to get myself out of that other than realizing that we need to look at things in a different way. It's hard because we don't have any answers at all. But
one of the most basic principles, and I think that this is why what you just described, one of the most basic scientific principles is something called Occam's razor. And it's the simplest explanation is always where the best point to start is for any kind of an understanding. And in looking at things, what I think we see in pop culture where Bigfoot is concerned is we see a lot of people accessing libraries in the back of their minds that were built from science fiction and a lot of that pop culture. And here's the thing, that's not to say that these people aren't telling the truth about what they've seen. Some of these people are obviously seeing this. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
I'm not saying they're not seeing illuminating eyes. It's just the reasons why they're illuminating.
Yes. And that's the deal, right?
Be going off of it.
When I talked to a woman who literally eliminated the flashlight from the entire encounter. And then when I asked her, did you bring a flashlight with you that night? Which was one of my first questions. She said yes, but I let her go on with the encounter and describe the whole thing to me. And in the seconds that she was literally staring at the glowing eyes, she was retreating backwards and had the flashlight pointed at her. But it slipped her mind.
Yeah, you're not going to remember everything at the time.
Yeah.
And you might not even remember what the moon was like, or just you don't know.
That's a big one. The moon.
Yeah. Look, we've got John back. Can you hear us? Are we coming in crystal clear?
Oh yeah, very good.
Oh yeah.
Sounds like
we can see the laptop screen now, buddy. We know we've got you.
Yeah.
Welcome back, John.
Oh, thank you. Good to be back. So how much of the story did y'all get from me earlier?
We heard all the first bit, the first kind of experience that you had.
Okay. So you heard everything. I just couldn't hear y'all.
Yeah, no, that's a shame that, but I'm glad you're back.
I did have a question though. Those experiences, was that when you were in Virginia or in Louisiana?
That was in West Virginia, where my parents had,
Okay.
when they retired, they had the second home, and they were going back and forth.
I
They
got
hadn't
you.
quite moved up there permanent yet. When that happened, I believe.
I got you.
So when that happened, I started getting interested in it, because the only thing I ever knew about Bigfoot was the Boggy Creek Monster, and I don't think I really knew about the Patterson Gimlin film and all then. But I researched a lot of that. But that was a pretty scary one, the Boggy Creek Monster. We stopped there at Falcon on the way back last year and visited that museum, me and my wife. But that was the first time I got involved with it, and that was in 2016. Then in 2019, May, my dad got real sick, so me and my brother had to run up there and check on him. And while I was up there, my brother was staying in the hospital. And I think the second night I stayed in the hospital, and the first night I think I took my mom's place so that she can go home and get some rest. So, no, I'm getting out of sequence here. Anyways, we were up there, and my brother was at the hospital. Me and my nephew, and I didn't know anything about the tree knocks. I knew a little bit. I just did them. But we went up the mountain, and we did 4 in different places, and we never got any response. So I said, well, man, these things ain't up here anymore. What was odd, I was kind of disappointed. But what was odd is one night I gave her a break, and she went and slept at the house, and she says something slapped the house last night, and she told me that it happened 2 different times, 2 different nights, and I was wondering, is it because we were doing the 4 knocks? Because Patrick Vaughn, he always suggested when I watch his videos, let's do 1 knock. He said it was less aggressive. So we were doing 4. So I was wondering, was I making them mad, and they came to my mama's house, followed us down, and slapped the house that 2 different nights? Because it was real odd, because I didn't know about house slaps then, and that's the way my mama described it. And so I said, well, I thought it was real odd until I found out about house slaps. I said, that must be what it was. So so what happened, that was when he was sick. And so before I left, I told my nephew, I said, we're going home back to Louisiana. Why don't you check around and see if you can see any structure? He said, well, what is that? Well, you might see an X. You might see arches. And I gave him kind of a description. And sure enough, he finds an X going up the mountain. Which really goes up by the top of that ridge where whoever it was threw something at me. But it was at the bottom of the ridge, that same ridge. And he found that X. And he's found some stuff like a tree with all the bark just pulled all the way down. He took pictures of different things that he spotted. And while I was there, I found a tree break, which I recognized. It was about 12 foot up, and the branch was broken and turned down. And I said, well, they got something there, but the only thing, we didn't get any responses. So it was in July, my wife decided, that was May 2019, July 2019. Me and my wife decided my grandson wanted to go up there and visit. So we went up there to visit. So I'd been listening to what Patrick Vaughn had said about the 1 tree knock. I said, well, we're going to do 1 tree knock now. So we went up, just give you an idea of the lay of the land. At the top of the mountain, they got a pond. They call it the goldfish pond. The local people call it a goldfish pond. And it's about maybe 30 foot across the diameter. And that's where the guy was sleeping when it woke him up, and the guy was camped above it. So we decided to do a tree knock that night. So we drove up there, and I backed up in there because I wanted to be able to get out. and I didn't want to have to be backing up and forward and stuff. So we got out of the car, and my little grandson wasn't scared. I couldn't believe it. He wasn't scared. He was crying because we wouldn't let him get out of the car. And I don't remember if we let him out or not. But we got a stick. We got up to a tree. And what was weird is, I mean, almost as soon as I hit that tree, they had a reply. And I freaked out. And I handed it to my nephew, say, you do it and see if we get an echo. And he hit. There was no echo. I said, we got to go. So we got in the car. We started driving down the mountain. And I guess y'all familiar with a switchback on a road, right? Going up and down mountains, a switchback.
Yeah.
So we ended up going through a switchback, and we ended up being below where we were. And he says, Uncle John, he said, let me do another knock. I said, oh, well, are you sure? He said, yeah. I said, okay, go ahead, get out and try hitting the tree or something. And he gets out, he jumps back in the car. I said, man, what are you doing? He says, they got something running around right above us. I said, well, let's go. We're going on home. So we went on home. I didn't want to take a chance. So that was the second thing that kind of happened with the tree knocks. I wasn't expecting a reply. So the next day I get up, and I think that's when I decided to put a camera in a tree. I put my cameras up in the tree. I don't put them down where people can get to them or notice them as much. I put them about 10 foot up a tree. So I always carry like a deer stand step and climb to the top of the step. I just carry one, and I'll strap it to the tree. So I strapped that to the tree, and I set it pointing towards the pond, towards the hill where that guy would have been camping. And I got it all set up. So we're doing a little investigating. We start going. They have a place up there called Miracle Mountain. It's a place my grandfather and all them, he donated all the wood, and they built a great big old country club with a log cabin and a groundskeeper place, which my grandparents lived there for a good while. But they have a gate. So we went to the gate, turned around, like we're going back towards to the goldfish pond. Well, on the way, before we got to the gate, my wife says, there's an X. I said, what? She said, right there on the top, there's an X. I said, well, we're going to go back and see. So we pulled over, we turned around, went back, and we had to go up the bank because, in the mountains, they cut those roads in the side of the mountain, and it makes a bank on one side and a drop off on the other. So they had a little trail that went up, and my little nephew, he got out of the car. He starts climbing up the trail. And I thought I seen him step on a stick or something. That's what I suspected it was, by seeing leaves fly up in front of him. I'm going, and he's saying, Uncle John, something threw something at me. And I'm going, oh, let's go. So we climbed up there. It was probably about 20 foot up the bank. And we go back to the left. Once we crested at the top, there's the X. And it's a perfect X. And it wasn't a real big branches, but it was perfect the way it was sitting. I'm going, that's really odd. So, I'm kind of talking to him, and I took a picture with him squatted down beside it. And I look off to the right, I see this huge arch. I'm going, oh, that's the biggest. I think that thing must have been 6 inches in diameter, and it went way out and it went down. And I'm looking at it and taking a picture of him. I feel a foot stomp. I never felt that before. I go, man, what is that? So we got to go. It made me nervous. And then I started believing about the rock, So we took off when we left there, and we went back to my parents' house. Well, later on in the night, my wife and them, they wanted to go put on headlights and go look up the mountain and go see if we can see something. So we go up there to the basically to where the X was, and we turn around and start coming back towards the goldfish pond. And I'm looking up the mountain with my headlight, and my nephew's looking down the mountain with his. Well, we get to going a little ways. I see some blue eyes. I said, well, that's deer. And he's not seeing anything. And when we get to the goldfish pond, I'm looking about where my camera is. I see a great big old eye shine. That's the weirdest thing I ever seen in my life. They had the purest looking gold. It was freaky. And I told my wife we got to go, and my nephew said he seen both, but what I suspect I seen one because maybe his head was behind the tree or something, and that was the first time I ever seen an eye shine like that. And I've been hunting for 20 years or longer, really longer, if you count Louisiana and stuff, and I'd never seen eye shine like that. I've seen all kinds of eye shine, but never seen something like that. That's kind of scared me, and I had my grandson. So let me see.
It's fascinating how you keep going out there and trying to like communicate with them, and then you keep saying, "Come on, we need to go. We need to go." It's like, you know, it's kind of poking the bear and then running away.
Exactly.
You know,
I
it's
don't
just
know why. Right now, I'm at a point where I don't want to camp. Going on with that story, we went up there and recovered the scan disc the next morning. So I went up there to get the scan disc. Well, I run into two gentlemen up there, and I just tell them, you know, I say, you guys, you know, you need to kind of watch yourself around here. Well, why is that? I said, well, because there's somebody seen Bigfoot up here. Or yeah, I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I seen his eye shine last night. He said, well, he said, I don't believe in no Bigfoot. I said, really? I said, well, look, I'm not trying to scare you. I mean, I just want to make you aware. I said, I'll give you an example. I've been hunting up here, and up here I found a doe that's pushed up under a bush. It wasn't a real thick bush. I couldn't figure out what killed it. I said there was no bullet holes, there was no bite marks, no predation, nothing. I said, and I was kind of nervous when I seen it. And I said, I can't explain that. And then I could see his wheels started turning. I said, well, what? He said, well, me and my brother found a bear. I said, you found a bear? He said, yeah, it was a big bear. I said, really? He said, we don't know what killed it. I said, what do you mean? How do you know? He said, because we skinned it. He said, we skinned it out. He said, we never found no bullet hole or no predation, no bite marks, no nothing. He said, I said, really? I said, where did you see that bear? He said, I was down in Spice Creek. I said, by that beaver dam? He said, yeah. He said, that's where I found the doe. They took off after that. But I just, all these coincidences, you know, come around, and it all points to the same thing, but you still want to kind of don't want to believe it. But then you're saying, man, it's got to be. And not far below where that doe, I found that doe and that bear by that beaver dam. He found the bear by the beaver dam. My friend hunted down in there, and he said he heard something holler down there one evening. It scared him, and he's been hunting longer probably than I have. And he found a deer stand that was, it said it was about 20 feet up in the air, but it was tore down and all bent up. I don't think bears do that, but you may have. But there's just too many of those things in that area. And I know there's another gentleman over there that was hunting around the bend from where we were. He broke down with his four-wheeler, so he slept out there on the four-wheeler, and he had a good coon dog, wasn't afraid of nothing. And something woke him up, and I'm not going to go through all the details about it, but something woke him up and screamed so horrible. He said the dog just kind of hugged his leg and sat there and shook. He said it scared him. He got out the next day. I don't think he went back until that night. I think he got out that day. He waited another day, and he went get his bike. But that's too many incidents around there, things happening. So where I was talking about the eye shine, the two gentlemen. Now there's this other story up there. Now this one's weird. Okay, well, they had a guy lives in a holler. He leases a holler. He keeps his horses in this holler. He lives right down the railroad tracks from my parents, and they got a bridge. The railroad tracks got a bridge that's built that goes past that holler, kind of blocks the holler, but they got a gate, and you can pass through there. And he has the gate. He has the key to the gate and the lease of the land, so he's the only one that can go in and out of there. And somebody told me this, and I had a second person verify it for me. But he said the old guy horse was dead. Now, I don't know if it died of natural causes or he found it dead. But anyways, he loaded it up with a tractor and he hauled it on the other end of that lease. And he went home to do something. He went back an hour later and the horse was gone. And it's a box canyon, basically. I mean, you have to climb steep mountains to get out if they don't go through the gate. I don't think anybody carried that horse off. You know, I could only think of one thing that could probably do that. But that's not far from my parents' house. But there's all kind of things like that can kind of go on. Now my mom has a neighbor on the other end. Somebody, Miracle Mountain, going back to Miracle Mountain, this lady, she rents the place. And she posted it on Facebook. So she put Miracle Mountain, you know, and it's like a park. So I said, yeah. And I just kind of put a little remark in there, say, yeah, home of Bigfoot. So I get this woman that starts, what do you mean by that? I'm going, whoa. I got a response. And I said, well, they got a guy that's seen Bigfoot up there. I was wondering, somebody put a sign up there and they by the pond and called it like the Bigfoot washer, like a wash machine, I guess. And she said, I don't know why they did that. Well, I told her the story. I said, well, what have you seen going on? You know, why are you so interested in that? She said, well, me and my husband hunt, and I used to hear knocks down in some of them bottoms below there where we were hunting, and I know nobody's down there because nobody wants to go down, climb down there and climb out. I said, yeah. They said, that's all? She says, well, when my husband and his friend went coon hunting one night on that same road that we traveled to go up to the goldfish pond, he said they had a big bipedal creature went across the road. Now, listen to this. It's steep on let's say going up the mountain, and the mountain's on your left and it falls off on your right. It's steep coming down. I don't know how this thing could have done it, but it had to kill himself. If a human being would have killed himself if he'd have went, but he went across it in one stride and went off the other side. I mean, one stride, and you can take two cars and pass on that road. And she said he won't talk to I tried to talk to the guy. He wouldn't talk to me. He said he won't talk to nobody about that except me and the guy that was in the truck with him. Because I said, well, why is that? He said he don't want to lose his job in the mines. He was working in the coal mines. Like I said, he thought he was crazy. They don't want crazy people in the coal mines.
Oh.
So, but that was another incident up there in West Virginia. Now, so I'm getting interested in Bigfoot. So I step out on the boat side. When I walk up to people, I say, you believe in Bigfoot? And I get shocked every time. I work for the recreational board over here in Pierre Park. We got a park, and we're building a little area, roofed area.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a big job, but they had a guy that was there constructing it, and I just out of the blue, I don't know what hit me. I said, well, you believe in Bigfoot? Oh yeah. I said, what? I said, why do you believe in Bigfoot? Now I'm in Pierre Park, you know. And he says, because I was picking up deer dogs one night, me and my friend, and we seen one. I said, really? Well, he said, yeah. I said, well, it looked like, he said, well, it was bipedal, it was big, it was black, and it was running across down the spoil bank. And when we were picking up the dogs, and he just out of the blue, I just got shocked. And that's happened to me, you know, a few more times. And I haven't asked anybody lately, but
it's interesting how many people have those stories.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, every single thing that you mentioned, it's like what you're talking about is that invisible data stream that I always talk about in my research, man. And there's like 10,000 people who have this data stream coming in, and there's an invisible perpetrator. And it's like, if people just knew in some of these situations, and it just sounds over and over and over, you hear this, and it just sounds like these beings are trying to make contact with people. And people, because they don't know any better, and because they've believed a lot of pop culture, they don't know how to react to it. And so in the end, it's like, it just seems to me that in these particular situations that you're describing, man, you went up there and you said that when you hit the tree, the reaction was instantaneous.
Yeah, I was like, he
Sitting
was
there
sitting
watching.
there waiting for me to do it.
Yeah, well, he was sitting there watching. You know what I mean? I mean, these are the like real simple things, man, that like you go in there and you're being watched, period. And if you want to test that theory, knock on a tree, and if the response is in 2 seconds, he was sitting there waiting for it.
Oh yeah,
You know
I
what I
believe
mean?
that totally.
But that's not a possibility because you have to believe in Bigfoot first. And this is the nonsense, right? There's all these people out there with this invisible perpetrator, and nobody wants to get honest about what's really going on. And it's like interesting to me because no matter how many people you talk to, the experiences are all the same for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would they even do that? I'm around these beings and have been around them, and I can tell you, man, they can hide and they want to hide and they stay hidden. So like I look at instances where they're letting you know they're there. Like these are opportunities, you know, and I'm looking forward at this. And it's like, man, a lot of the stuff that you said, pretty much all of the stuff you said, with the exception of, didn't you say somebody shot one? Because you had a lot of information there.
He shot at it. I don't know if he hit it.
Oh, okay. He shot at it. Yeah. That's the thing that I hear rarely. Yeah. Rarely do you hear that. Well, and usually the 2 times that I did hear where somebody shot at one, those people came up missing or dead.
Oh, really?
On their own properties.
Well, it might be the fact that they had two other persons there. The guy, his wife, a girlfriend or wife, and the other guy, Charlie Swartz, they got woke up. Maybe that might have been the difference.
Well, I mean, you know, shooting at them, man. I mean, I think they get the idea, right? So, but it doesn't sound like that's the situation with you. Yeah. With the stuff you're talking about, that sounds like these things are like, hey, man, I'm over here. Check this out. Maybe they're looking to see if you have an apple. I look at it like, man, you know, sometimes people in their properties, when these creatures travel these forest corridors, it strikes me as odd that taps on the house. I mean, I've talked to so many people, even on their properties, man. In North Carolina, I talked to this one guy, and they were smacking his house. And it's like, what are they doing that for? You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, obviously they must get bored. And I think we've talked about this, Daniela. But at the risk of what's going on, to reveal themselves to somebody they know has a lot of guns on that property. I mean, they know this guy's been there. This is 4th generation property owners, you know?
Yeah.
So looking at it, I have to like include that they want to make contact in these situations as a possibility. I mean, it's got to be a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It just contradicts itself, doesn't it?
It does.
All of it does. The most elusive creature, suddenly it's reaching out, leaving a gift. But you know, who's to say it's for us? Why do we think that they think we will understand them? I mean, there's 100 questions to it, but yeah, maybe.
Well, like the other thing too is a lot of what John said kind of also and this is the other side of the coin. Like I have a lot of resentment against the creatures because I spend a lot of time chasing them, and they play games with you.
I believe that.
They play games with you. They know you are slow, inept, and you're not going to be able to do anything if you don't have one of those big things that goes boom in your hands. Yeah. And so in the end, it's like, you know, getting the rocks thrown at you and the knocks on. That's another option too. They like messing around with the goofballs who can't see them for some reason, right? Because they look over at Larry and he's in a tree 25 feet away staring right back. But we're looking at the trees going, what is in there? And he's standing right there. You know what I mean? So that, to me, that's like got to be another option. I mean, when you've stood within 30 feet of them and had them pop you with pine cones repeatedly and still can't tell, and you know they're in there smiling. You know what I mean? It's like, this is ridiculous. I can't do this thing, and I've been hit 3 times. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's the perfect timing thing. You mentioned it. They waited until the exact moment that somebody wasn't looking, and then boom, there was all kinds of movement. Or, you know what I mean? It's like as soon as you turned around to leave, he knocked again, causing you to stop. I had that exact experience here in Florida. 3 times I turned to leave, and 3 times he reinitiated.
Oh, you're talking about my earlier incident with the forest?
Yeah, it was nuts, you know, and I kept thinking he's looking at me, and when I turn around and walk away, he hits the trees again. You know? So I definitely think that, you know, a lot of the situations you described, man, fit right into it.
Now, I had another incident that happened on my wife's family property. I seen one but it was so in Louisiana on the family property in the swamp. I seen one. I didn't want to believe it. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. So I looked at it, and in fact, I think Kerry Arnold had a picture of it. It's a picture of one that his head's above a stump, and he got two trees right here, and it's got a black head.
Okay.
It looked exactly like that, except it was laying down because the head was sideways. So I figured it was laying down. It was low to the ground. And it was real thick, and that's all I could see was the face. And I just going, it's got to be pareidoia. So I climbed down out of the tree stand. So let me go over there and look around. So I go over there, and all the grass is matted down. And I hear something walking bipedal to my left, walking out into the swamp. I'm going, what? So I look out there, and I see this big, tall, black stump. It looked like a tall stump. I'm thinking, that's odd, a tall stump, a black stump. So I raised my rifle up to put it in my scope. It's not there. And I don't know how to point a rifle. I lower my rifle. It's gone. So I had three things. I seen a face. I seen four. Matted grass. I heard it walking in the water. And then I seen something and it disappeared. These things are so subtle, it scares me. Because it makes me want to know if I'm going wading in the swamp, if one's not going to reach around a tree and grab me.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Subtle. That's the word you use, man. And that is the perfect word for what they do. I mean, subtle, and it is scary. It's unnerving.
Yeah.
It's unnerving, man. And it's funny because what you hear with your naked ear in their areas is nothing compared to what you hear with a pair of headphones and a good microphone.
Yeah.
What you hear in a pair of headphones with a good microphone is subtle coming at you. And
Right.
it will come at you. And it freaked me out because I always wanted to know. And we would hear these little crackles and this and that, but you don't associate that with this big thing. And so we started bringing the headphones. And when we did, it put me off of being in the research area at night. The primary reason we don't go in those areas at night for the most part is the headphones, because subtle is what we heard. They were doing subtle, and it wasn't subtle from a distance. It was subtle where steamroller sounds coming through the bushes, like real slow, where you could tell that something was positioning its hand and then putting pressure on it. And it was just like, whoa, So like I that unnerving comment you made, that was the most perfect description of how I feel in those situations. And it's usually on a weekly basis, unfortunately, but
yeah. Well, we had another incident where the guys picked up the deer dogs. Me and my wife went out there in the late evening, and we parked our boat in a little slip. So this is the first time I really started experimenting around here. So I picked up a stick and a paddle, and I knocked. And the water was high then, so it was like a spoil bank, but right over the spoil bank, the water was high. So my wife hears something walking towards us, and I hear it, but I hear like water dripping off of it. But it came to the bank, paralleled the boat, and then walked off. I'd never had that happen before, so that was kind of freaky. But she got nervous and said, "We got to go," and we ended up leaving. But those little things, that's another subtle thing. I mean, this thing just kind of walked. She can hear it walking, swooshing, and I could hear water dripping off of it. It was that close, but we couldn't see it.
How much bush was in between you guys?
Oh, it probably wasn't a whole lot. I mean, they have a lot of palmettos around there, but I mean, it was so much bush you couldn't see in there, but maybe 5 yards.
Okay.
Maybe.
It's interesting how he maintained that like perfect depth in there where whatever you were looking into, you weren't going to see him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Smart.
I'll tell you about a camping trip. This one was interesting. This one was what scared me. We went to Costashi. They have a campground. This is during the COVID was bad, and they shut down a lot of the national forest there. So but you could still go. I forgot what type of camping that is, where you could just go camp anywhere in there. Well, we went ahead and camped by the campground, but the bathrooms were closed, and we stayed there 2 nights. Well, the first night it kind of went with no incident, but the second night, like way off in the distance, my wife said she heard a knock, and I thought I might have heard it, but I wasn't real sure. But she had found a footprint next to a tree. It looked like a footprint, but we weren't quite sure. But it was next to a tree. So that night we went to sleep about 4 o'clock in the morning. Now this is weird. I'm laying there sleeping. I hear it sounded like coyotes to me, and they were cutting up like you wouldn't believe. Like it sounded like a pack of deer dogs chasing a deer, but it was coyotes, and they weren't just sitting in a group and hollering. They were running and hollering. I hear a tree fall, in the woods. I mean, it wasn't no little bush. It was a tree. I'm like, my God, what is that? And, I had a pistol with me. But the coyotes, it stopped immediately, and the tree fell, and that all stopped and got dead quiet. So I'm looking up at the sky through the tent because I had all the doors open. It's just a screen. I'm going, man, God, hurry up and get some light. I need some light. And I'm waiting there. So about maybe, and look, we're the only people in the campground. And there's no lights. There's no cars, doors, no nothing. I hear the trash can lid drop. I don't hear it fumbling and banging around. I just hear it drop. Bang. And that freaked me out. Well, the best part of it is I'm laying there and it drags a branch over our heads against the tent. A branch or a finger. Well, I wasn't by any bushes. And that's what really scared me.
Yeah, I'd do it.
Oh yeah. And me and my nephew were hunting recently. He don't believe in Bigfoot, I don't think, but I think he's starting to question it because he heard what I heard. I heard a tree break, but by him, he said he heard a tree fall while we were deer hunting. And I know they got some around there because people had heard them holler around there before.
Yeah, in those situations, man, I don't know, man. Daniela, this area sounds like it's off the chain.
There's a lot going on, isn't there?
My God.
There's a lot going on. There really is.
But this stuff would have been going on before. I'd never paid no attention to it.
Yeah. Did you ever smell anything out there?
Oh, smell? Well, I was going to talk about this one later. Me, my wife, my sister, and she had to bring her granddaughter with her, which, it made me nervous because she wasn't quiet. So we went up to the goldfish pond a trip after, and it was in West Virginia by the goldfish pond. And my wife found a print of indentation. I said, okay, if this is a print, because, it was hard ground. You couldn't see toes and stuff. I said, well, 6 foot, it looked like it's pointing that way. There ought to be another one. And sure enough, there was another one. And I'm investigating all this. And I'm kind of a little way from my wife, and my sister were on the other side. I hear a whistle. And Wendy said, well, who's whistling? I said, well, I'm not whistling. I said, y'all whistling? No, we're not whistling. And so then I hear a footfall. A deer puts his paw down, his hoof down. It's not like a thump. No, it was like boom. I'm going, oh my God. I said, let's go. So we go. Now listen to this. We go down, and it's probably, you got to ride through a switchback and way around and way around. It takes like 15 minutes to get to my parents' house by time. And it's a short distance, but running up and down the mountain. So we get to the house, and my wife and the granddaughter and all, they'll go in the house, and I hear a noise. It sounded almost like a rifle going off. I couldn't quite place it. And I asked my sister, she was still in her car. The other ones were in the house. I said, you heard that, Margot? She said, yeah, I heard that. I said, it sounded like a rifle or something to me. She said, well, it sounded like a rock hitting the roof. But what I think it was a tree break.
Yeah, and they can sound like a rifle.
Yeah. Well, here's this funny thing. Now, we got out in the dark, and the kids, the noise and everything, not the neighbor's dogs never barked. So I'm sitting there, and I heard the noise. I hear a whistle, the same whistle I heard up the mountain. Well, the neighbor's dogs start cutting up something fierce. I'm going, what the heck? And then I said, so I started to go towards my truck because I wanted to get my headlight. And then I heard a big tree break, like, Kia! I said, oh, Lord, I almost turned around and didn't go get my light. So I went ahead and said, no, I got to see. So I got the light and started looking around and never could see it. But those, either one or two or whatever, I think they followed us all the way back to the house, and they whistled. And then they broke 2 tree branches.
Wow.
Yeah. But if I didn't know about all this when I came home, I said, oh, a tree broke, or a branch broke. Oh, I wonder who's whistling,
It's
but
just an occurrence of natural disaster.
Yeah.
It's an accident. Trees, and it's like that question. Does a tree make a sound when it falls in the woods?
Yeah.
Because nobody ever heard one. So there was literally that question. So like, what do you say then?
Yeah.
I mean, you got footfalls and you got whistles and then you got trees popping like rifle shots and all this. That's pretty insane, man. That's an active area.
Yeah, I'm finding
the most
tree
active
breaks.
areas I've ever heard of.
Yeah, I'm finding tree breaks over here on that property. We heard a tree break when we got out my truck to go walk to the back of my wife's family's property. Both of us. I said, you heard that? She says, yeah. I said, man, they there. Wow. And then they had somebody seen the Bigfoot, like the one I had seen, I guess, because he said it was dark, but it wasn't far from where I seen it. But if you get on the 21-inch pipeline canal, and you go all the way out, that's where he seen it at. He was fishing. He said he turned around, heard a noise. He seen it. He said it was like a 6 or 8 foot tall, big black thing. He said he pulled up his trolling motor and took off. And he don't want to talk about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
John, would you stay with us after the show for a minute so I could talk to you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I sure will.
Cool. Yeah, well, look, we have come to the end of the hour. And yeah, no, it's because we started a little bit late, but I think you should come back anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe when Kerry's on, do a late show with Kerry. Definitely get into some more detail. It was just because we had those issues at the beginning, and it's 2 a.m. in the morning for me. So I'd love to carry on, but I've got work tomorrow, and just life gets in the way sometimes. But I appreciate you trying and eventually getting on. So we know now we can get you on nice and clear anyway. So you hang on there, John. Thanks again, Mark.
You're welcome. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And we'll see you all. Well, I won't, but Kerry or maybe Mark will be there on Friday night for the late show. And of course, Sunday Conversations on Sunday. But until then, everyone, have a great night and we'll see you all soon.
Okay.